So you've likely heard of the New Deal and the moment in American history where the American middle class was born. Social Security, the minimum wage, unemployment insurance, the right to unionize. And that's true. For many Americans, these policies transformed economic life. But that's only part of the story. It's JJ. Welcome back to Black History Month 2026. And today we're talking about how the New Deal built a middle class. It just didn't include most black workers. When these laws were written in 1930s, most black workers were deliberately excluded. So start with the Social Security Act of 1935. It created old age pensions and unemployment insurance, which is basically the foundation of what we think of as modern economic security. But the law excluded two major categories of workers: agricultural laborers and domestic workers. Now, in the 1930s, those were roughly the two largest job sectors for Black Americans, especially in the South. Roughly 65% or so of Black workers nationwide, and up to 80 to 90% in the South, worked in either agriculture or domestic service at that time. So that meant that the very strong majority of black workers were locked out of the very programs that helped white workers build retirement security and intergenerational wealth after the collapse of the economy. And that's not by accident, right? We know that. So Southern lawmakers held enormous power in Congress at the time, and Franklin Roosevelt, the president at the time, needed their votes in order to pass this New Deal legislation, but the Southern Democrats insisted on maintaining racial labor hierarchies, especially the sharecropping and domestic systems that keep black workers economically dependent. And if you're confused, I need you to remember that at one point for a very long time in American history, the values and ideals you think of as the Democratic Party and the values and ideals you think of in the GOP were the mirror opposite of each other. Those parties flipped along the way in American history. So don't let the naming of the parties confuse you. Not to say that Democrats are innocent in any of this either. Now, to secure their support, agricultural and domestic workers were then carved out of the law because the South didn't want to extend those provisions to black workers. Nothing new there. So that same pattern then showed up again in 1935 when they had the National Labor Relations Act of 1935, which guaranteed that workers had the right to unionize. They had the right to bargain collectively. So agricultural and domestic workers, guess what? Excluded there too. Now in 1938, we got the Fair Labor Standards Act. Now that's the law that created what you get now in the federal minimum wage, and then also the beginning of what's known as overtime production. So, well, guess what? Guess which categories of workers the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 excluded: agricultural and domestic workers. So while industrial workers gained wage protections and union power, millions and millions of black workers remained in sectors that had no federal labor standards and no guaranteed bargaining rights. And it was a selective design. White industrial workers, as part of the New Deal, gained access to union wages, collective bargaining again, contributions to Social Security, unemployment insurance, and the introduction of what was known as a wage floor. Black workers who were in those excluded sectors did not. And over time, that difference compounds, or it starts to build up on each other. Social Security benefits build on lifetime contributions. Union jobs, we know, raise wages and create pensions as well as access to other forms of work and opportunities. When you make higher wages, we know that the rate of home ownership goes up, and economically, home ownership was a major way in the United States to build generational wealth, or wealth that you pass on to your children. When people say, well, the New Deal created the American middle class, that's absolutely true. It distributed security through policy choices shaped by these political compromises, particularly to appease segregationist powers in Congress. This wasn't about erasing the New Deal's achievements. It's not important you know these things so you can say, fuck Roosevelt. It's not the point. It's about understanding that American prosperity has always been structured and designed to support and uplift white Americans at the detriment to black workers. We see these things still today, not only in the racial class wars that those in power with wealth want us to continue to enact against each other, but also in how you see the delegation of which jobs are considered worthy of benefits or protections, which states have things like at will employment, what the culture is around unions in the sector and industry in which you work, and if the industry in which you work has had to fight for the last 100 years or so for your labor rights, it's most likely because the industry you work in was once an industry populated by either black Americans, Hispanic and Latino immigrants, migrant workers, or women when they first entered the labor force. None of those people were deemed by our United States government to need protection in the workplace, and all of those people still today are fighting for it. The latter exists, it always has. And just like in the 1930s, in 2026, black workers are intentionally still kept off those first few rungs. See you tomorrow.